One of the most significant lessons for life that the Torah encourages us to be very careful about is found in our Parsha, and that is being careful not to embarrass other people. We learn that from Tamar. Tamar is told that she's going to be killed because of her transgression. And instead of her saying, look, the person to whom I became pregnant, the father of my children, is Yehuda, instead she alludes to it by saying, look, whoever owns this ring, that's to whom the person and I became pregnant. But she wouldn't directly name Yehuda. And that's because, as the Gemara tells us, we have to be very careful not to be malbin chavero, not to embarrass someone else. The story is told by Rabbi Shmuel HaChassid that he had a custom during the winter months that he would wake up very, very early in the morning, and he went to his base medrash, and he wanted to make sure that his talmidim were warm when they came in to daven in the morning, when they came in to learn. So he would make sure that he put enough wood in the fireplace so that the entire building would become warm by the time his students came. One morning, he noticed when he put some of the wood in that the wood was a little bit wet, and he was concerned that the wood wasn't going to take and the fire wouldn't be strong, so that the shul wouldn't be warmed. So he put his head into the furnace just to try to blow the fire onto the wood and maybe just try to get it moving a little bit. And all of a sudden he hears, as his head is in the furnace, he hears somebody walk into the shul. And within a couple of seconds, I guess that person wanted to pull a prank, or didn't know whose head was in the furnace, but they just saw that someone was bending down on the floor and their head was in the furnace, and they came back behind and they tapped the person who was in the furnace. They tapped Shmuel HaChassid on his behind, and Shmuel HaChassid just stood there. He didn't come out of the furnace because he didn't want to embarrass the person. This Talmud, apparently, when they would see that they had hit the Rebbe, imagine the embarrassment that they would feel. And so he waited inside with his head inside the furnace, and he starts to get hot, and his face starts to become filled with soot, and he's just sweating as the fire is starting to take, until he waits and hears that the door is shut, the door closes to the base medrash, and that way he knew that his Talmud left, and he pulled himself out of the fire. And by then his face was already so black and so dark, full of soot, that when he came to his students to learn with them in the morning, they said to him, Rebbe, what happened to you? And he told over the story. And one of the students who was there was the one who apparently kicked him, but had no idea that it was him. And so he didn't want to embarrass the student, that it was better for him to have all of that soot and literally burn off some of the hairs on his face from the heat than it was to embarrass that student. And of course, when they asked him, Rebbe, how far do you go? And he responded, based on the Gemara, that the Gemara says that it's better for a person to throw themselves. Gemara Bava Metzia says, Noach lo la'adam, it's better for a person she'apil atzmo lakiv shana ish, that should throw themselves into a fire, v'al yalbim pnei chaveiro barabim, so as not to embarrass their friend or their neighbor, barabim, in public. And of course, practically speaking, we would never suggest literally that someone does so, but we do suggest that we're more careful when it comes to the potential possibility of us embarrassing someone, and make sure that we're very cognizant of who is around us when we say something or when we act a certain way, so as not to bring embarrassment and shame to other people. Wishing everyone a good Shabbos.